Aloha everybody, Tracie here. Welcome to my Hawaii channel where I talk about culture, history, language, current events, and answer your questions with aloha. Today's lesson is a cultural lesson talking about our kupuna, or our elders, our old people, our grandparents. Last time I did a Hawaiian language lesson on kupuna and kupuna. So if you want to watch that video, you can watch it here. I'm posting it for you above. So the four things that I'm going to talk about is, number one, the cultural significance of kupuna in Hawaii and in the Hawaiian culture, because Hawaii is made up of many different ethnicities today. The second thing is the significance of kupuna in other cultures outside of Hawaii. The third thing is I'm going to give you an example of the cultural significance. The fourth thing is current events related to kupuna. If you want to follow the timestamp below, go ahead and do so, and let's get started. So the first thing is the cultural significance of kupuna in Hawaii. And in Hawaii, our kupuna, or our elders, relatively have a high position or a high standard, or we place high value on them here in the islands. And I believe that it has to do much with the Hawaiian culture of the past, valuing our kupuna in the sense that prior to the coming of the foreigners, the haole, Hawaiian was an oral language, meaning that it was a spoken language, not a written language. It didn't become written until after the missionaries came to Hawaii. In the old days, that significance of kupuna having so high value is, if you have a language that's only spoken and not written, the values that you need to be transmitted down to the next generation is things that you're going to say, and therefore those words carry much value and much significance, because those next generations are depending on those older generations to give them direction, and to give them history, and to give them culture, and to give them understanding. And so that in part is why the kupuna, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but that in part was part of the reason why the value of kupuna to me is very high. And then those of you that are historians or know some other reasons, please post it in the comments below. The next thing that I see for our kupuna is the different value system that other cultures, foreign cultures, have, or their value that they place on kupuna. And what I see is, in other cultures, I see that the value of kupuna is lower. So for instance, in the American culture, in the Western culture, you watch lots of movies. And growing up, I've watched lots of movies, and I see that the value of old people is quite low. You see old people seen as old, weak, decrepit, senile, crazy, dirty old man. Those types of portrayals of older people is what I've seen growing up of old people. And that value is directly contradictory to the way that I value my kupuna, or the way that I was raised to value old people. Let me know what your experience was with kupuna or old people. And in your culture or in your society, were they regarded highly or not? I did a cover of the Moana song in Hawaiian. For those of you that watch the movie, you see that her kupuna, I think she called her puna in that movie, but her kupuna, people thought she was like this crazy old woman, you know, she's like this bat crazy old lady. And that is similar to what I saw in foreign cultures or haole cultures growing up. And then the third thing is an example. So quite a few years ago, I would say maybe like 10-15 years ago, I was at a party, and this party was for my ex-husband's family. So it was a Samoan party that we had gone to, and we were all standing up and we were waiting to eat. We said the pule, or the blessing, and we stood around the food. And then after the pule was done, one of the young people had taken the oldest woman in the house, which was their grandma, and they took her to the place where the food was, and they asked her what she wanted, and then they started to plate her food for her. And then she sat down, and then they gave her her food and made sure that Tutu, I don't know what Tutu is in Samoan, let me know, e kalamai. But Tutu sat down and she had her food, and after Tutu had her food, then that's when everybody was allowed to go and have their food next. A lot of parties that I go to nowadays in Hawaii, you know, sometimes that value is not translated because, you know, we're in a current society right now, but we see that now people are like, oh, let the kids go eat first. Let the kids go eat first. You know, let them go eat because they're little, they're small. But no, I had saw in that culture, it was the kupuna was the one that went to eat first. Why is that? The value that was placed on the elder is high. Her first, and after her, then everybody else. And she was the oldest person. It was only a female, never have grandpa. I think he had passed away, but I'm sure if there was grandpa there too, he would have eaten first too. Make sense? And then the last thing that I want to talk about is our current cultural events. So remember in the beginning, I had told you that here in Hawaii, there's a high value relatively for our kupuna. Well, now during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have a situation, and I have a picture, and that's a picture of me when I went to Foodland. It's showing the kupuna hours. And you're like, oh, what's the kupuna hours? Well, here in Hawaii, during certain times of the day and certain times of the week, only kupuna, I think you have to be over 60, are allowed to shop in the stores at that time. I know it's like that for Foodland, is a grocery store here in Hawaii, for Costco, and I think there's some other stores, but those are the only two that I really know of. And what does that mean? It's the value placed on our kupuna, because kupuna are allowed to shop at that time, and only kupuna, because we don't want them to get sick, so we don't want the general population, I'm saying we, but it's not we, but they don't want the general population in with the kupuna shopping. It's a time for only kupuna to shop in the store at that time of the day. And that's been going on for several months here in Hawaii. And why is that? It's because here in Hawaii, there's a high value that is placed on our kupuna. Do you folks have kupuna hours? What's been happening in your culture, in your society? And let us know in the comments below. So I hope you enjoyed that video. And please like and subscribe if you do. And we will see you next time. Aloha. Ahui ho.